Welcome everybody, welcome to another episode of Live Gaming Power Plays here on Power Staples. Hope you're excited for some EDH action. Today we're playing Archangel Avacyn on the left against Brago, King Eternal on the right. On the left side is Leah and on the right side is me, Teecee. We are drawing our first hand. I'll keep a wonderful hand with only 2 lands, 1 plains and 1 island. But also 1 stasis, 1 propaganda, 1 palinchron, 1 detention sphere and 1 land tax, which is very important in this matchup. Leah also keeps her first opening hand containing 2 plains, 1 Temple of the Fails God, 1 Pearl Medallion, 1 Twilight Shepherd and 1 Aegis Angel. Due to the house rule of ladies first, Leah may start the game and she plays a plains during her turn and ends the turn. On my first draw step I draw 1 Armageddon, which is very critical, especially together with this land tax in my hand. So I play 1 basic plains card, tap it for white mana and then play a land tax on the field and then end the turn. On Leah's turn she plays another plains card and taps 2 to cast her Pearl Medallion. So now all her white spells she casts costs 1 generic mana less to play. On my turn I untap and during my upkeep land tax triggers because Leah now has 2 lands in play and I have only 1. So I may search my deck for 3 basic land cards, reveal them, put them into my hands and then shuffle my library. So I search my deck for 1 plains and 2 basic islands and put them into my hand. During my main phase I continue playing an island and then for 1 blue and 1 generic mana I play the stasis, which is an enchantment that says players do not get an untap step. Well, actually it doesn't really help out because I do not have any more mana right now because it's the second turn already early in the game. So I cannot really make this stay on the battlefield because I cannot pay blue mana if I do not untap my lands. So actually it just stops her 1 turn and also delays me a turn anyway. So both players kinda like skip the next turn, so I get to draw 1 card and she does do the same. And it also stalls for 1 whole turn and that's about it. Then I cannot pay the upkeep cost and then stasis will go to the bin. But actually it just gives me another land drop and something like that. So on Leah's next turn she's pretty much under stasis, she cannot untap her land. So all she can do is play another plains and then end the turn. So on my upkeep I cannot pay the blue mana for the upkeep costs before I untap. So I decide to let it go to the graveyard, not to pay the blue mana, and then because the card is sacrificed I do get an untap step again. So I untap my lands, play another land, and then I can finally for 3 mana I can play 1 propaganda. So whenever a creature tries to attack me, the creature's controller has to pay 2 mana for every creature, otherwise it cannot attack me. Well, right now there is no creature on the battlefield on my opponent's side, but actually if this Armageddon will stick, then finally this card is huge because opponent won't have that much mana to spend on attacking actually. On Leah's next turn she untaps, plays a Temple of the Fails God, but even if her Temple of the Fails God is not active at the moment, she's able to pay 3 mana and save 1 due to the Pearl Medallion to play Angel of Jubilation, which is a 3/3 flying creature, angel that says other non-black creatures you control get +1/+1, and players can pay life or sacrifice creatures to cast spells or activate abilities. On my turn I untap, and during my upkeep I decide to use the land tax again because I can, and then search for more basic lands, and then I realize that I have Eldrazi Displacer in there, for example, so I possibly try to get out a waste this basic land. So I decide to get 1 basic and also another island and then nothing else because my hand is almost too full. I have to discard some cards, so I keep only 2 of them and the last one is not searched out right now. I play the basic land and now I have 4 basic lands in play, but before I may cast Armageddon, of course, I have to get my commander down on the battlefield, so I decide to go for Brago and put him into play. While I'm still counting my hand cards and finally realize that I have to get rid of a basic island due to have only 7 cards on my hand during my end step, It's Leah's turn. She pays 2 to play her Bora's Signet, and now she finally has access to red mana, and she could pay 2 to attack me due to the effect of the propaganda, but it's not the best case because I have Brago out and the 2/4 body is going to block the 3/3 right there, both flying. I untap, draw for turn, and finally realize that I have almost only land cards in my hand right there. So it's the perfect time right now to play this Armageddon card. It's waiting in my hand to destroy all lands, because I have many lands left and Leah doesn't seem to. Afterwards I play a land for this turn, which is actually part of Ancestry, which enters the battlefield tapped. Because I cannot attack either way, I end my turn. Too bad Leah is not so lucky and does not have another land to follow up with, so she cannot even use her Bora's Signet, so all she can do is pass to me. Myself, I draw yet another land, which is Terramorphic Expanse, and because all the cards in my hand are very expensive due to the mana cost, I just put it onto the battlefield to search up my deck for a basic land later, which enters the battlefield tapped anyway. Leah finds a basic mountain off the top, which finally may turn on her Bora's Signet again, but she cannot cast any further spells, so she ends the turn. And at the end of her turn, of course, I crack the Terramorphic Expanse to get a basic land tapped. And this is actually kind of funny to me, because originally the Angel of Jubilation kinda like prevents me from activating abilities that pay life, like all the original fetch lands will have to pay life for. So I get my basic planes out, and then in my turn I play another land. And then I'm finally able to cast the Tension Sphere on her Angel of Jubilation, removing it from the game. Like putting it onto the card actually, that's always the best kind of like way to do that. And if this card were to leave the battlefield again, then her Angel of Jubilation will return to Leah. But now actually the way is clear for my Brago to finally get in anyway. At least I can flicker Brago himself to give him kinda like vigilance when he attacks. On Leah's next turn she doesn't find the land she needed, and so she skips the turn. And on my turn I play Waste This. And for 4 mana I cast Eye of Doom. It's an artifact that says when Eye of Doom enters the battlefield, each player chooses a non-land permanent and puts a Doom counter on it. And I can sacrifice it and pay 2 mana later on to destroy each permanent with a Doom counter on it. So as for the trigger for the Eye of Doom when it enters the battlefield, I choose a non-land permanent on my own, which actually seems to be the land tax in this situation, because I have much more land in play than Leah does, and so it doesn't seem that land tax will be useful anyway soon. And after quite a longer decision, Leah finally decides to put a Doom counter on also one other of her non-land permanents, which actually is her Bora's Signet. Do you see where this is going? Then now I attack with Brago, hit Leah for 2, and now that Brago has dealt combat damage, I can now choose any number of non-land permanents I control and flicker them. They come into play back again after they left the battlefield. So I choose to flicker 3 permanents. One is the Brago, which kinda like gets vigilance that way again. Then also I flicker the land tax, which then the counter from the Eye of Doom is removed. And at last I flicker the Eye of Doom, which comes back into play again. And now I choose a permanent that is not a land and put a Doom counter on it, which is the land tax again, which does not have any counters yet, so I may choose it as well again. And then Leah may also choose another card she controls, which is the Pearl Amulet, and also get the Doom counter that way on it. After this, I finally pass over to Leah. She finally draws another land, which is actually in Handwire Battlements, which does produce colorless mana at last. With these 2 mana, she casts an Aberrate and chooses to destroy a target artifact, which should be my Eye of Doom. Too bad, I really wanted to use that Eye of Doom again and then destroy all permanents with Doom counters on them. Too bad this doesn't work out. The Eye of Doom is destroyed. Then it's my turn. After the command tower joins my land base, I have 5 total mana to finally cast a card called Revelark. It's a 4/3 flying creature that says when it leaves the battlefield, I get up to 2 creatures with each power 2 or less and then put them onto the battlefield. But sadly my graveyard does not contain any creature right now. But at last it's a 4/3 attacking creature. So I swing with Brago, coming in hard, deal another 2 points of damage to Leah, and now I can finally flicker my land takes, which will get rid of the Doom counter, and also I flicker Brago, but nothing else to do here. Leah takes a big draw. She needs something great to turn this game around. But sadly she draws not a land or not a card she wanted, so she passes over to me. And I untap, and I draw for turn, which is actually a Parallax Tide. That's a wonderful card. So I play the planes, and then I cast Parallax Tide. For 2 and 2 blue, it's an enchantment that has fading 5, and it says I can remove a fade counter from Parallax Tide, remove target land from the game. And when Parallax Tide leaves the play, each player returns to play all cards he or she owns removed from the game with Parallax Tide. So with this I can target 2 of her land cards and remove them from the game. Which is actually fairly brutal. It's heavy now, she does not have a land back again. And I can start over attacking and flickering things and also get the Parallax Tide to remove and come back and forth, so she gets the land back at the end of my combat phase, which is not the best timing for her to get the lands back, and afterwards I can still remove 2 fading counters and remove their lands again every turn. So the fading that kinda like ticks down is avoided because I can flicker it with Brago. As a mistake she puts them into the graveyard, but I explained to her that they are only removed from the game as long as the Parallax Tide remains being on the battlefield, and as soon as the Parallax Tide leaves the battlefield, her lands will come back on her side of the field again. So she can't do much on her turn again, so she skips that turn over to me now, and on my turn the Parallax Tide loses a fade counter due to the fading ability itself, because it's my upkeep and I have to get rid of a fade counter. And then in my main phase I played Sabo's Web, which is an artifact for 2 converted mana cost, and when it comes into play I draw a card. And it also says that lands with an activated ability that doesn't produce mana don't untap during their controller's untap steps. But in this deck it's kinda like more like a draw engine, because whenever Brago hits I get to remove any kind of permanence from the game, flicker it and coming back again into the battlefield, and then whenever I flicker the Sabo's Web, I get to draw additional cards each turn. So I switch to the combat phase, attack Leia for another 6 points of damage, and then with Brago's ability I flicker the Brago himself, the Revelark, and also some other cards like the Sabo's Web, which will draw me additional card, and also the Parallax Wave to prevent it from losing also more fade counters. Leia's 2 lands that were removed with the fade counters from the Parallax Tide jump into the game, and then also whenever I decide to remove them from the game, which I do kinda like immediately, they will just simply be removed again. And it also this happens during my combat phase, which is unlikely to be very useful for Leia to abuse that situation, getting those lands back. Not really effective right here for her, so they will remain removed as well again, and I can draw 1 more card with Sabo's Web and continue like this. Leia still does not get a land or anything else to get rid of the situation, so all she can do is has to discard her hand size down to 7 cards and discards her Rhea Dawnbringer into the graveyard. During her end step I use that fetch land over there to grab me a Hallowed Fountain from my deck, which is actually a shock land. It's an island also in the plains, so I can get it and put it onto the battlefield tapped, because I do not want to spend 2 life to put it into play untapped, and now I will untap anyway. Then I draw for turn, find a Tranquil Grove, which enters the battlefield tapped. Then when it enters the battlefield, I gain 1 life. Why not? Then for 7 mana, I finally get to play my Palinchron. When Palinchron enters the battlefield, I may untap up to 7 of my lands. And then with my mana untapped, I have 7 mana back again, so I can also summon the Resolute Archangel, which is a 4/4 flying creature angel that says when it enters the battlefield, if my life total is less than my starting life total, it becomes equal to my starting life total. So I attack Leia again with Brago and the Revelark, dealing another 6 points of damage to her in the air. And with Brago's ability I can now flicker the Brago himself, the Revelark, the Palinchron, the Parallax Tide and the Sabos Web. This provides me with 2 untapped creatures that attacked before. I can now untap 7 of my lands, I can get to draw a card with Sabos Web, and I do not lose the fate counters from the Parallax Tide. During my main phase 2 I can use the mana to play the Rishadan Cutpurse which I just drew. It's a small pirate, the 1/1 creature that says when Rishadan Cutpurse comes into play, each opponent sacrifices a permanent unless he or she pays 1. And simply because Leia does not have any amount of mana to spend on that trigger to avoid sacrificing a permanent by paying 1 mana of any color, she cannot do that, so she has to sacrifice her Bora's Signet because of this trigger. And I also summon the Mildrifter, a 2/2 flying creature that says when it comes into play I get to draw 2 additional cards, which I draw. With more than enough damage done, I pass over to Leah. Now she draws and finally gets another land, which is Antidake the Cloudkeeper. It's a legendary land, very powerful, that provides 2 mana to her mana pool to spend on the legendary spells like many angels she has in her deck. But unfortunately, Antidake the Cloudkeeper comes into play tapped. Additionally, I explained to Leah that it could be possible that I can remove a fate counter from my Parallax Tide and then remove her Cloudkeeper from the game and then go back and forth with just another land which she does not have when she wants it. But that's not very nice of me, isn't it? So I just explain it to her and decide not to do that. I draw and play Halima Depths, which is a land that comes into play tapped, provides me with a blue mana, and when it comes into play I get to look at the top 3 cards of my deck and put them back on top of my deck in any order. So I decide which card I want to draw first, which actually is not really that necessary because I draw additional cards when I flicker Mildrifter and the Sabos Web later that turn, but actually I still do that. So I go to my attack step and swing with Revelark, the Pirate, Brago, the Palinchron and the Resolute Archangel to have a total of 15 damage dealt to Leia, so from 16 she drops to only 1 point of life. And then, as I may repeat, I remove all creatures from the game, I flicker all creatures that previously attacked, and also the Parallax Tide and the lands bounce back and forth out of the game and back then into the exile. Also the effect of the Rishadan Cutpurse is on the stack as it enters the battlefield back again, so Leia has to pay 1 mana to prevent it and she still cannot do that, so she has to sacrifice another permanent, which she decides to get rid of her Antidake the Cloudkeeper. Then during my main phase 2, for 6 mana I get to summon the Consecrated Sphinx, which is a 4/6 flying creature that says whenever an opponent draws a card, I get to draw 2 cards. So additionally, for another 3 mana I get to summon Tassa, God of the Sea, which is a legendary enchantment creature god. She's indestructible, and as long as my devotion to blue is less than 5, Tessa isn't a creature, but right now she is. She's a 5/5 indestructible creature, and at the beginning of my upkeep I get to scry 1, and for 1 and a blue, target creature you control can't be blocked this turn. So I end my turn, hand it over to Leia, and still she does not know what to do. She has to get rid of another card during her discard phase, and she discards an Akroma Angel of Wrath to the graveyard. I realized a little bit late that I could draw 2 additional cards due to the effect of my Consecrated Sphinx, which I do. During my turn, during my upkeep, the fate counter goes down for only 2 now. Then I draw, and I put in another land into play, which is Hall of the Bandit Lord that enters the battlefield tapped. The effect is not really necessary right now. I summon Angel of Finality, another angel against the originally angel deck. It says whenever it enters the battlefield, I exile all cards from target player's graveyard. Additionally, I play Steel of the Godhead. It's an enchantment, an aura when I target Brago with it, and it says as long as enchanted creature is white, it gets +1/+1 and has lifelink, and as long as enchanted creature is blue, it gets +1/+1 and is unblockable. And simply because Brago has both colors, white and blue, he is now a 4/6 creature and has lifelink and is unblockable. And then because the game is truly over now, I can attack with my 1/1 small pirate and deal the last point of damage to Leah, and now the game ends. Putting Leah's life points from 1 to 0. I hope you liked the video, please like and subscribe, thanks, bye.